to go ahead and get it started and do an introduction of our presenter. But first, I'm Mel. I'm the Program Operations Manager. And we're really excited to have this series of presentations by Sune, and then tomorrow Ingrid will join in. So here's a quick biography for Sune. Sune Frederiksen was born in Skanderborg, Denmark, but grew up in Ronderslev. You can correct me after I sit down. After high school, he attended Aarhus Sport Folk School for 10 months with a focus on sports leadership and coaching. The main areas were team handball, soccer, gymnastics, and swimming combined with academic topics. After a teaching degree, he was on the fundraising committee for Friends of North Jutlands Folk School Sports Academy for 6 years and taught part-time for about 2. Later, he had a short period as director for a traditional folk school. Sune studied international relations at the University of Aalborg. He immigrated to Kentucky in 1995 and became a liaison between Berea College, the Folk Circle Association, and the Danish Gymnastics and Sports Association. For the past 30 years, he has been a true community builder, educator, self-employed restaurant owner, and much more. He is the current president of the Folk Circle Association of Berea, the engine behind dance weekends and the Berea Celtic Fest and Gathering. For a period of 20 years, he was the prime organizer of shows and workshops for the National Danish Performance Team's visits to the USA. He has the pleasure of being on the board of directors for the Danish American Heritage Society, the Museum of Danish America, and convention chair and former U.S. Vice President for Rebuild, the Danish American Friendship Association, which was founded in 1912. Let's all welcome Sune.
Do I need a microphone?
Probably.
Probably. But you could hear what I said.
Yes. And he's hard of hearing.
Hard to hear.
They're making a recording though, so.
Yeah, I think you'll need
Yeah.
the mic for the recording.
For the recording. Okay. Is that better, sir?
Better.
Okay. It's for the recording. But first, before I start, I just want to say about the organizations that I'm also involved with in the United States. And this is the Rebild National Park Society. It is an Illinois non-profit tax-exempt organization. And we celebrate the 4th of July every year in Denmark. It's been doing it since 1912. And it's the biggest celebration of the American Constitution outside the United States. After the Second World War, there would be 40 to 50,000 people there. Today, we're about 2,000. So it goes up and down, up and down. This is a newsletter. I have 4 or 5 of them, and if some of you are interested, you can have them. They're free, so I'll put them here. We are having the annual meeting in Nashville from the 6th till the 14th of September this year, in about 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm the convention chair. 2 years ago, I was the convention chair in Cincinnati. So it has to be in the United States because it's an American organization, even though the headquarters is in Denmark. So if you're interested, you can grab one of these handbills here and look at the website too. And the other organization I want to promote a little bit is the Danish American Heritage Society that has its home at Grandview University in Des Moines, Iowa. And next year we're celebrating the 50th year anniversary, so there'll be a big convention and conference in Des Moines at the university. And we publish this, it's called The Bridge. It's a biannual journal with a lot of stories from people who immigrated from Denmark to the United States, and also some more new topics. And a membership is only, I think, $30 or $50 a year. So if you're interested in that, you'll get 2 of these a year. And they will also be present in Nashville. In 4 weeks, we'll have a spring meeting. And there's a little bit more information about it here. These are mine. And then I'm very much involved with the Danish Sisterhoods of America too. So much that I'm a member. So I became a Mr. Sister. And twice I have arranged a trip to Denmark for the organization. In September last year, took 32 ladies and their spouses across the pond to Denmark for 16 days. And it was great, wonderful. This year, in September, we are going to North Jutland, and it was published in maybe November, and within 3 weeks we had 35 people sign up, and today it's sold out with 45 people. So that's wonderful. So if you have any interest in Danish sisterhoods, come and talk with me. I know some of them. And this is the program for this tour in September. And you're welcome to take a look at it too. I'll leave it here. And I talked with N.F.S. I know she's interested in going to Denmark to learn more or relearn, be re-enlightened about what the folk school life is today. So, enough to talk about. And they have a newsletter. You're welcome to take a look at that too. Okay. So, 4 or 5 weeks ago, a lady from Browstown called me. Martha, do you know Martha? Oh, there she is. She called me.
Be careful.
So I better stop. She called me and said, Sune, I hadn't talked with her for 8 years or something like that. And she just called me and said, Sune, I think I have something you're interested in. Oh, let me hear. And then she talked for 45 minutes. And then she said to me, do you want to do that? So I said to her, can you repeat what you just said? And during the conversation too, she said, you better talk with my husband too. So, but the first time I came to Browstown was in '93 on a trip arranged by the Danish Gymnastics and Sports Association, some clergymen and free churches in Denmark. And we came here on a trip to Berea, Browstown, Arthur Morgan School in Yancey County and Washington, D.C. for a conference. It was called Democracy in Sport, Education, and Religion. That was kind of broad. And when we compare these items with democracy in those areas with Danish democracy, we had some huge discussions about what was good and what was bad, and what was good for the kids and what was good for the sport, what was good for the religion. So we learned a lot, and that was the first time I visited you, and I stayed there. Yeah. So thank you so much. I thought when we talk about Grundvig, we need to know a little bit about what Denmark is about too. And because we need to put things into perspective, and you might think it's too much of something that has nothing to do with Grundtvig, but we are all influenced about something. And very seldom you can claim, this is my own idea. It's the same with self-made men. They're not really self-made. They have other people to work for them, right? And that's just how it is. We are being influenced over and over and over again. And Grundtvig, he was very much interested in Nordic mythology and history. That was his main topics after he had graduated with a theology exam at the age of 20. He had finished everything. He was a smart man, he was industrious, he wanted to work, he wanted to make a difference. And so he was ready to become a pastor or a chaplain somewhere. But he was too young. At that time, he had to be 27. So he said, well, I didn't really want to do it anyway. I did it for my father because he's the pastor. So, but then he got a job as a private teacher in the city of Aarhus, and later on he became a chaplain in his father's church because he was getting old, 76 years old, and he couldn't do everything. So when he passed away at 79, Grundvig actually applied for his position, but was denied. To a big surprise, they didn't want him because he was too smart. He was too open-mouthed, and he was a rebel in many ways. So back to the beginning of Denmark. Denmark is probably 12 to 14,000 years old when it first became inhabited. And it was not like people settled there. It was cold at that time. But it was mainly used for hunting and collecting stuff, and then maybe back to Germany or Prussia or whatever it was called at that time. And two wonderful examples of men were found about 2,400 years ago. One was called the Tollund man, and the other one was called the Campbell man. And they were found in a moor, in a bog, and maybe in an oak tree that had been hollowed out. And it's just amazing to see them today at two different museums where you can see the black skin and the features and everything. And they are at the Silkeborg Museum and at the Moskva Museum in Aarhus. So if you ever go there, that's something you really want to see. You can say that Denmark goes back 1,000 years as it's recognized. And in 965, Gorm the Old and his wife, Queen Thyra, you might say Tyra, Thyre, Thyra, had raised what is called the Yelling Stones, where it officially says these are the first official kings and queens of the nation of Denmark, 965. And their son was Harald Bluetooth. Some of you only know Bluetooth from computers, but he was actually a very famous king in Denmark. And at that time too, I think I read somewhere, in year 826, the first Christian pastor or monk or whatever came to Denmark to try to convince these wild and savage people to see the lights of God and Jesus. But they already had enough, you know. They were very happy with Odin and Thor. So it was really a tough battle. But Ansgar, he was a bishop he later became the bishop of Bremen in Germany. He had a very good talk with the queen, and because she liked goodness. She liked to be saved. She liked the eternal life that was not really promised everyone in the Odin dynasty. But she could also say that people had met Jesus. He was alive, he was a historical person. And it was difficult for the king at that time to say, well, I have seen Odin and I have seen Thor. So it was kind of the mythology, the belief system. And but their son Harald Bluetooth, he took it more to heart and believed that it could be an advantage for him on his throne to be this good king. But he could not accept that God was above him. So Ansgar had a chat with the Pope and said, well, we have a problem here. And then the Pope said to Ansgar, well, why don't you just tell him that you are at the same level? And that worked. How Bluetooth liked that. So he became God on the same level as the Christian God. But not everyone liked that idea. The wild and savage ones. And small churches were built up here, and monks and priests, it was Catholics, of course, at that time, were sent out across Denmark. And actually Denmark, this is Denmark today. And Denmark goes further down to two German territories called Schleswig and Holstein. So it was kind of big. And it was also, Norway was Danish too. Parts of Sweden, the counties of Halland, Skåne and Blekinge were Danish. And there were Vikings sent to England, and maybe you remember that half of England was actually Danish, and they had a law called the Dane Law. And Dublin was conquered too, and I think the first island the Vikings came to was Lindisfarne, out in the North Sea, not too far away from the North English coast. But anyway, it was now a question, a big conflict. How could we get these wild people, these savages, to become Christian and good people? Because of course they were not good people. And they decided that everyone was supposed to be baptized. And they would do it in creeks and rivers and things like that. And all the villages had to go down there, and there would be a priest who would baptize them. And there were people who said, I don't really believe in that Jesus, and how is this possible? And so they were met with I should say only one ultimatum. Either you are baptized or we will behead you.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then they said, what did you say his name was? Jesus? Yeah. Well, I think it sounds very good. So it turned out that everyone, more or less, became Christians at that time. So it's a peculiar way of doing it. And that was something that Grundvig didn't like. So we had the Viking Age from about 800 to 1250. You can't say it stopped at that year, it started at that year. That's nonsense. But they came all over. They went down to Volga, they went to North America, Greenland, France, conquered Paris, Istanbul, I think it was called Constantinople at that time, maybe something else that I have forgotten. So they brought slaves home, they brought gold home, they brought women home, and they brought one monk from Lindisfarne home, just to learn a little bit more about Christianity. And he stayed alive for many years till he escaped and went to the Vatican. So Denmark is a complex country because there are so many islands. It has between 400 and 500 islands, and maybe 350 of them have a population on them. But they are also getting depopulated because of new times and whatever is going on now. It's difficult to have people staying on the small islands. So, but it means that Denmark is a very important country for Russia, Finland, Poland, Germany, Sweden, because they had to go through the straits here, over here. This is Copenhagen, and the strait between Copenhagen and Denmark and Sweden. It's only about 15 minutes or 20 minutes by boat. So Copenhagen actually means the city of trades, and Denmark had Sweden at that time. So nobody could come forward and back without paying tariffs. Have you heard that word before? So Denmark and Copenhagen became very, very rich, and Copenhagen really puts itself on the map and became a very strong nation of sailors and navies, and a strong navy. So the waterways in Denmark have always been very, very important. Not only were Danes a nation of sailors, but also fishing. And it has been very important, and is still very important today, with big exports to many countries. I just want to fast forward a little bit. One important king was Christian IV, and he lived from 1577 till 1648. And he was the great builder and architect of many magnificent buildings in Copenhagen and other places. For example, the old stock exchange that unfortunately burned 2 years ago, but they had pledged to rebuild it, like Notre Dame in Paris. It is so important that it is being rebuilt, and a lot of the interior has actually been saved. And also in Copenhagen there's a tower called the Round Tower. You walk up, round and round and round and round, and I know the king had used it for horse back racing, both up and down. So, but I have been up there several times, and it's really fantastic. And he was himself buried. He died at Rosenborg Castle, and that's where the crown jewels are today. And he built that as well. So he is the architect of so much fantastic architecture in Denmark, and it's still there, you know. Then a little bit fast forward again. I would say at the same time as Grundvig lived, there were two other significant persons. One of them was Hans Christian Andersen. He was born in 1805, and he died in 1875, so 70 years old. And Hans Christian Andersen was kind of the ugly duckling. He wrote that about himself, and people think all his fairy tales and his stories, they are for children. They are actually for adults to a large extent, because he just put them in other clothes, you know, and put different minds to them. But he was treated so badly by so many people that he had this urge to write them. So it sounded like it was for children, but it was actually about a lot of people he really, really disliked, the people who stepped on him. And the other one was Søren Kierkegaard, the founder of existentialism, and that's Jean-Paul Sartre later on took up as the French philosopher took up, and was really, really inspired by Kierkegaard. And Kierkegaard, he was a weird person, but he was also smart. And his father was a minister, and his uncle became the bishop of Aalborg. Aalborg is up here. That's actually where I lived at one point. So he was in conflict with himself all the time. And one time he said, I really wish sometimes that I was a true Christian, because then everything else would be so easy to solve. But he couldn't get along with himself and the thought process. So instead he wrote all these small articles and long articles and books and so on. And sometimes, you know, a sentence would be half a page long, and it would be really difficult to remember where you started and where you ended, because it had so much in it. Kierkegaard had a fiancée, and he had invited her to the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen. And she was so excited. And she was so much looking forward to it. And she had been dressing up the whole afternoon. And then around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the show would start at 8. A messenger came, and Søren Kierkegaard had decided to cancel. And she was devastated and very, very sorry. And she sent a letter back to him, "How can you do this?" And Kierkegaard replied, "You have to understand that the joy of expectation is the largest." There you go. So during that time, so they must have met during their walks in Copenhagen, but it has not been proved that they at any time have met at the same time. I'm sure that Kierkegaard, he disliked Grundtvig a lot, and Hans Christian Andersen hated Kierkegaard, and so on. They were so different, but the Kierkegaard and Grundtvig came out of really, really respectable families, whereas Hans Christian Andersen, who was born on the island of Fyn in Odense, and his dad was a tailor and mother probably a cleaning woman. But people were talking. They were talking and said that maybe Hans Christian Andersen was the child of the Danish king, because the king had been in Odense, and it could have been the same period of time when his mom was getting pregnant. So he had this royal thing over him all the time, but he was never really accepted to the highest level. But he got close and stayed with counts and dukes and viscounts and things like that. But not really up to the king. And he talked with him a few times, and the king supported him in his endeavor to write stories and also sometimes to pay rent. So there must have been something about the story. That's what I think, and that's what many people think. But who knows how many children the king actually had across the country. So, and Grundtvig, he was born in 1783 and died in 1872, and he was married 3 times. He had a profound impact. Some people, I need to say first, Grundtvig is not really known outside Denmark a whole lot. In Scandinavia, yes, but if I say Grundtvig here in the United States, people don't know who he is.
Except in Brasstown.
And but people know who what's his name? Søren Kierkegaard is. And people know who Hans Christian Andersen is. And Hans Christian Andersen's stories and fairy tales are translated into maybe more than 140 languages, including Apache. So they know him. But Grundtvig, he was the man, from my point of view, the most important man in 300 years in Denmark. And he really puts his soul and his heart and his brain on the topics he believed in. He had a profound impact on Danish life through political, social, religious, educational, and philosophical participation. And it was very important for him to participate because he had an opinion about everything. And he thought that things were knitted together. And a lot of people put religion in one box, philosophy in one box, and education in one box. But actually, that's not how it works, and it can't work that way. So with his opinions, he actually stimulated considerable discussions and debates in Denmark, and especially in Copenhagen and Aarhus. But he had a good childhood, and where he was born on the southern part of Sjælland, which is here. Here, in this neighborhood. So it wasn't too far from Copenhagen, where things took place. He was home taught, so he had never gone to a public school. And when he taught himself, he was also the teacher for wealthy kids. So, but he still had that notion that, especially from the 1830s, when democracy started to be something, that how can peasants, stable hands, participate in a democratic process if they can't read? And if they go to church, the pastor speaks in Latin, and they don't understand a clue. They don't know. So it was very important that he put pressure on politicians, that he put pressure on clergymen, and he put pressure on other social institutions. But he had some opponents. Grundvig was more the happy and positive, innovative thinker. And then there was people from another group called N.F.S. And my grandparents belonged to N.F.S. My dad was not allowed to go to the cinema. He was not allowed to play cards. He was not allowed to dance. And they couldn't have alcohol in their house. Even though my grandfather was a grocery store owner. So at one point he was the chairperson for the local, it was called Blue Cross. It was against alcohol, Christians against alcohol. So in a small town of maybe 800 people, there were 10 grocery stores. And all the other ones started to sell alcohol. And he couldn't. But at one point he said, if I have to survive, I need to survive, I need to sell alcohol. So he started selling alcohol, and then he was expelled from Blue Cross. That was not possible. And later on in life, he also started to take 1 schnapps every morning, and he could do that because it was not alcohol, it was medicine to start the day, get the blood going. But anyway, that was just a side thing. So N.F.S, if you want to know a little bit more about N.F.S in Denmark, I can recommend that you see or read a book called The Fisherman. And that's Strong. Strong is from the northwest coast of Denmark, and where they lived a really dark life. Believed strongly in the mercy of God, and no matter what happened. And so my dad became a Grundvigian. He wanted to be happy. He didn't want to see all that sad and black stuff going on. Another book or film that might be good for you to see the difference between Grundtvig and N.F.S is Babette's Feast. I don't know if you know of that one. Yeah, and it was actually written by a lady in the 30s, but she used a male name because she couldn't really use a female name at that time. Isaac Dinesen.
Oh, yeah.
Dinesen. And she was also the one who wrote the story Out of Africa. Of course, now I can't remember her name. She lived north of Copenhagen in Rungsted. It's bad, I can't remember her name. Isaac Dinesen, that was her writer's name. Isaac Dinesen. Karen Blixen. Karen Blixen. Karen Blixen. Anyway, Grundtvig was very industrious. And as of today, actually 1/3 of all the hymns in the Danish hymnal book was written by Grundtvig. 1/3, believe it or not. It means that, and over the years, some of them have been removed because they didn't make sense to keep any longer. It just means and shows what kind of influence the man had. He was a rebel of the mainstream Lutheran church and opinions at that time, and that was all the way back in 1825. And he advocated at that time, maybe for the first time, about some kind of folk school things. He advocated for popular, autonomous places of learning. And the first time he argued about the living word was around 1930, when the democracy movement has started to move forward a little bit. He wanted to educate what was called the lower orders. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah, the lower orders. So in order for them to participate, as I said before, in the democratic process, they needed to learn how to read and write and think, for that matter. Before that, there was not really a reason to think, because they were always told what to do, and they were kind of slaves for the big farmers and so on. He became more and more politically active, first with a more conservative mindset, because that was what it was. There were not really political parties at that time, but there were conservatives, business owners, shipping men, traders of all kinds of stuff, mainly located in Copenhagen. And that party was called Højre. It means the right. So another party showed its face. It was called the left. But it was to the left of the conservatives. It had nothing to do with socialism. And it was mainly wealthy farmers in other parts of the country who wanted to rebel against the conservatives, who had all the power and most of the money. And that's where the movement started. And they wanted to develop a more reforming and liberal position in Denmark. And when I use the word liberal, it doesn't mean left-wing either. Liberal means free, right? And you have it from library, for example. But also, you may remember maybe that there was a political party in England called the Liberals, and that was a centre party between Labour and the Conservatives. So I don't know what happened in America when we use the word liberals. You're damn liberal. People will say, right? But anyway, it's very important to know that the word liberal has actually 3 different meanings in 3 different languages, and probably more when we add other things. The first folk school was established in Grundvig in South Jutland, and it was very important to do it out in the countryside, where people who worked on the farms, they didn't have anything to do in the wintertime. So Grundtvig saw this as a great opportunity to educate people and enlighten people about life. And here was one of the big discussion points in Denmark, because he was provocative, again, politically, but also especially religious within the Lutheran Church. I should say it became the Lutheran Church in 1536 when Catholicism was thrown out of Denmark. So from 1536, Denmark became Lutheran. He said, in order to figure yourself out and what you are and why you are here on earth and have dreams and everything, then you have to say, first human being, then Christian. That was really provocative, because everyone else before that, they were born Christian. they didn't have a choice. And who would dare to say that you should be a human being first, and then you can make a decision whether you want to be a Christian or not, or whether it's good or not, or should I stay away from religion, because that was not possibility. No, it was not a possibility at that time. But now it was being kind of a riot thing to do. So the living words, as you know here too, or the spoken words, I think it's the same. I don't really know the difference from a theoretical point of view. Do you? Is it used the same way in America? Spoken word and living word? Can we say it's the same? In a way, I was a little bit in doubt about. But anyway, it's about being able to speak your mind and share your opinion with others, and be able to have a dialogue, not being beheaded because you have a different opinion, but try to be enlightened about what was going on in society, to make society better, to make people better. And that was definitely his aim. And in his first major work on education that was published in 1836, it was called The Danish Four-Leaf Clover. And it was about the king, the people, the homeland, and the language. The language was very, very important to Grundtvig. And he must have written over thousands of songs and small articles and so on. So it was about enlightening and enlightenment of your life, or of life in general, with real teachers. And real teachers was not necessarily the ones that went to university or teachers' college. It was about the people who knew about what they were talking about. It could be how to be a farrier on a farm, taking care of the horses. It could be how to mend a wheel on a wagon. That was the real teachers. And you didn't have to have a formal education. And hooray, here we are. Everyone who has good intentions, have some skills in a certain field, can be employed at a folk school or a free boarding school in Denmark. And it's the same here, I assume. You don't have to have a formal education to teach. But as long as you have a message to spread, that is good for the betterment of the community and your peers. That will be good. And what he also said, what can people who speak Latin and go to exams and get high marks, what can they do in a field of cows? Hey, move. The spiritual communication of the truth was also important. And sometimes you can ask yourself, what is the truth? But you have to talk about it. You can, for example, ask your question. We heard about Jesus when he was 12 years old, and he was in a synagogue, in the temple, and his parents found him. When was the next time we heard about Jesus? It was when he was 31. So what happened the 18 years between he was 12 and 31? We know nothing. Is that something that is worth discussing? But there was questions that came up, maybe even today. And also the discussions, the educational, philosophical and theological conversation could take place anywhere. They didn't have to take place at a university or college. It could take place out in a field, in a woods, by the lake, because what you could see was actually what the world was, nature. There were nature all over. It was not somebody who owned that unless maybe if you believe in God. So what people saw in nature was God. That was very spiritual, and it was a new way of thinking. So, student participation was very important. No one, no matter how little you knew or how much you knew, was put aside. You all had a voice. And if you went to a folk school and you knew nothing, I can guarantee you that you knew something when you left the school, whether you wanted it or not. But that's the same as universities too. You hopefully know more when you leave the institution. But a lot of these people didn't have a chance at a university. They only were fed by the owners of the manors where they worked. That was about what they had. So the movements became very strong. Village meeting houses were built, and cooperative agricultural corporations they started to work together as co-ops. And there were social movements and independent congregations. It meant that many, especially out in the countryside, they built their own churches. Usually it was a state church. The Lutheran church in Denmark was a state church. But these people decided to create their own congregations. And they're still there today. My brother was married in what is called a free independent church, which is located right next to a folk school in the northern part of Jutland called Råbhøjskolen. You might have heard of it, David. It's only about 10 kilometers north of Honnesville, where N.F.S and your kids went to school. So it became, another slogan would also be school for life, right? Because you never stop learning. You must never stop learning. You can't say just because you have become, been examined to become a doctor, then you stop learning. That's not how it works. And that's not how it works. That's not how it works for farmers either. What are they called? Tailors or carpenters or plumbers. So school for life, learning for life is very important. In 1914, there were 83 schools, folk schools, and also in the Nordic countries and in the USA. The folk schools in the United States was mainly up in Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, and actually Grundtvig's son, Frederik, was in the United States, and I don't know how long time he stayed, but he was here to influence the people up in the north and the heartlands and so on. And the two colleges that was built by Danes, Grundvig College in Des Moines and Dana College in Blair, Nebraska, they existed for many, many years, and they started out as some kind of folk school, and then they became colleges, and today Grundvig is a university. Dana College went bankrupt a few years ago, and they claimed that it was because the football players ate too much. So much for that. But Grundvig College was for Grundtvig people, the happy Danes, and Dana College was for the sad Danes, the inner mission people. And they were called both the sad Danes and the holy Danes, and the happy Danes won. Oh, I shouldn't say that, but I just happened to. Today, in 1997, there were 110 folk schools in Denmark, and they were all subsidized by the Danish state with up to 85% of the teacher's salary. Very important. Then in 73 to maybe 2000, there was a big political thing going on in the Danish parliament, and especially the party called Venstre, the left, who was really behind the folk school, had started dividing. So a lot of the young politicians wanted the business schools to have bigger priority than the folk schools. So they clashed. It was just a generational thing. And it turned out that the schools receive now 65% for teacher salaries, and 20 of them closed within a very short period of time. And we were down maybe even 30. And the lowest it has been is 73 folk schools. But now it's kind of stable, and it's still very popular. If in Denmark you can only be subsidized by the Danish state if there are 12 students on a long-term course, okay, and it has to be more than 50% Danish, okay. If you don't do that, you cannot offer short courses, and short courses, that's where the money is. It's like here, you know, you can have a bridge course, or you can have a golf course, or you can have a course on philosophy, or drawing, or bicycling, or whatever it could be. You know, they just had to expand what they offered, and that's what they had been doing. The school that N.F.S went to in Grundvig, that was what I call a pure Grundtvig school with a focus on sports. But 50% of all subjects had to be academic-minded. Later on, when they couldn't get enough students, they started encouraging people who want to become police officers to join the school. So they made a special line for police officers or wannabe police officers. So that it changes all the time. So they're trying to hook up the times. All right. So I've been very involved with the Danish Gymnastics and Sports Association, and arranged numerous shows for the National Danish Performance Team, and workshops and homestays across America. And I like the slogan. It is sport for life, sports for all, and sports for fun. And they have another little slogan called "Let's move the world." And one of the other key words I think is important is togetherness. We do this together. Okay, that's it. And if you have any questions, you're welcome. Yeah.
Did Kierkegaard's fiance, did they get married?
No.
No, wow.
Are you kidding me? It was over. He never got married.
Okay.
No. If you don't have any questions, I know it's because it's dinner time. And maybe tomorrow you'll come back and meet Ingrid, Hank, and she is the director of the Grundvig Institute in Copenhagen, and she has a background as a student of theology in both Copenhagen and Aarhus. So there will be more discussion and so on. So yes.
Oh. Could you talk about bringing the gymnastics teams here? I think I kept three times housed the gymnasts, and it was such a joy. But could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I don't think they want to come.
No, I know.
Doing the political situation. Just to be honest.
I thought that. No, but I'm just talking about the past.
About the past.
The teams that came,
Yeah.
and what that was like, and what you observed about the schools.
Well, I observed that all people are different, and the leaders are different, and they have different approaches. Some of their leaders were maybe a little bit to the left, and there were other ones. They were really they want to decide everything. Very conservative action points, I would say. But the gymnasts, they were between 18 and 30 years old, and it was so important for them to be a part of this team. 28, travel the world every other year. It could never be the same gymnast on the same year after year, only one time in their lifetime. So there would be gymnasts who tried out several times, and they could have been third year medicine students, or they could have been carpenters with a great job, and they had served their apprenticeship, or they could have been nurses or accountant. This was so important, and still is so important in their life if they get selected to this national Danish performance team. Sometimes we say competitive, not competitive. This is a non-competitive thing. I think we have to be very careful about that, because in general, gymnastics is a team thing, we do it together, but when it comes to be selected to a national team or regional team, then it's really, really competitive.
Yes.
But they still know it's about togetherness. They still know where the roots are. And it's the same if you play bridge. You don't want to be not competitive. You want to win. You know the systems. If you play table tennis, you don't play table tennis with your left hand if you're right-handed, just because you don't care whether you win or lose. You want to do your best. I think the word being non-competitive needs to be twisted a little bit in certain cases. Maybe not if you are a painter and if you are at a painting course, or maybe not if you are, what should I say, an artist, because you work very often for yourself. It's not really a competition. It's about what comes out of your head and your mind and your inspiration. But when it comes to badminton or tennis, you don't go out there and do your worst. You want to do the best, and if you win, that's good. Maybe it's not important, but you want to do your best anyway. Did that answer some of it?
Yeah, they were just so wonderful
Absolutely.
and so delightful
Yeah.
every time. Yeah.
Sune, when you said that the school in Brønderslev was a Grundvig school,
Yeah.
why? Why was it a Grundtvig school and another one might not be? Just in terms of the program itself.
Well, yeah, it's about sharing and supporting, understanding that to make a better life in Denmark, you need to, and if you want to have universal healthcare, we need to work together. And conservatives and other right-wing parties, they are really for universal healthcare. And even though the medium tax might be, when it boils down to stuff, is 39%, for some people it's more. But you have to remember the first $10,000 are tax-free. It means a lot. But it's better to have a healthy employee than one who's not been treated for his broken leg. And it's also better to have an educated homeless or unemployed than somebody who's not educated. I think that's the. I haven't been in Denmark for 30 years. Things that I have been in Denmark, but not lived there. So there might be some different things that I don't understand today. But in general, it's about we need to do this together. Some people say the taxes are too high. Yeah, but what do you get for it? You get free education. University students today in Denmark are paid $1,000 a month to go to university. It means that you get the best, not the richest. Right? And if you get unemployed, you are maybe on 80% of your income for 2 years. You don't have to sell your house or your car. You still have time to build a different life. It might go down to 65% after 2 years. I don't know the rules anymore, but something like that. And it is expensive. But what do you get for it? And that is, and I think the Danes are very good at saying what is left after taxes and how can I live a good life with what I have. And actually we have a lot. But I forgot to read something. Do you have half a minute?
Half a minute.
It is central to Grundtvig's thinking about the living words. And this is a term that is used at the Last Supper. And we have to remember he was really, really Christian. I saw life, real human life, as it is lived in this world, and saw at once that to be enlightened, to live a useful and enjoyable human life, most people did not need books at all, but only genuinely kind heart, sound common sense, a kind good ear, a kind good mouth, and then liveliness to talk with really enlightened people who would be able to arouse their interests and show them how human life appears when the light shines upon it. I think that's pretty strong. It's impactful. So,
Thank you.
thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, and it was great. Just really quickly, tomorrow, same time, same place, 4:45, we will have our second of 4 presentations, and the topic is Origins of the Folk School Idea, and that will be with Sune and Ingrid both in conversation with each other. And then tonight, at 7 o'clock, we have the Berea Bluegrass Ensemble here in the community room.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming, I really appreciate it.
No,
I
tomorrow.
don't
Yes,
know.
You're all dressed up.
She's bringing me a point too. I have one on my refrigerator.
Well, I got it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah, they're great.
Hey.
And they like, just show me. You've got
If you want wood, Wednesday. Okay. There'll be something here at 4:55. Right. Figured that. Okay. I see. No, not me.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure before you got away.
Well, I tried to announce the keys in her car, but she wasn't ready. Amen. Now I gotta pay. All right. I hope so.
David,
Yes.
so did you happen to feed my puppy a snack?
No.
Did you go down there? You didn't go down there at all?
No.
Did you let the chickens out and everything?
Good chickens are mad.
Go eat my supper.